May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes for the committee meeting held on October 7th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are now moving on to PCR 100-24. May I have a motion for acceptance of the committee meeting minutes held on October 7th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 1 is bid 2025-206. The Warwick Police Department, original equipment manufacturer and OEM parts for various police vehicles. This is found on page 1. Good evening, Major.
Good evening. Major Andy Sullivan for the Police Department. The Police Department went out to bid for original equipment manufacturer parts for various vehicles and received 2 bids. The bids were received from Tasker Ford of Cranston and Elliott Auto Supply, doing business as Factory Motor Parts of North Attleboro, Massachusetts. The Police Department recommends awarding the bid to both vendors as their pricing was nearly identical. Having both vendors will allow the Police Department to mitigate any supply issues and reduce vehicle downtime. The Police Department is seeking spending authority in the amount of $110,000 for a 1-year contract beginning November 18th, 2024 and ending November 17th, 2025. If approved, funding would be sourced from Budget Code 30-330 Auto and Vehicle Maintenance and Insurance Proceeds Account 76358.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead. Would you have more, Major? I apologize.
That's it, sorry.
Thank you. No, I apologize. Are there any questions from members of this committee? Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. Can we get a solar shade put up in those windows? No, I don't know if it's intentional or what, but we're being blinded over here on this side. Just fooling. Hi, Major.
Good evening.
The what did you spend in this line item in the last 2 years?
Actually, if you give me 1 second, I can get that. I
Sure.
looked at my.
Mr. President, you want to borrow this? This is the solar shade for this side.
So for the OEM part bid last year, it was a $95,000 spending authority, and we've spent $76,000 with a remaining balance of 19.
And you spent 76?
Yes.
And the reason for the additional monetary request is inflation? You're expecting more pots? Or what's the scoop?
Yes, absolutely. Our fleet manager tells me time and again how the parts keep going up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of the council? Are there any questions, comments from members of the public? Thank you. Thank you, Major.
Thanks.
Next is item number 2, bid 2025-205, tourism. This is for the City of Warwick fireworks display for 2025 and 2026. This is found on page 3. Good evening, Director. Please identify for the record.
Good evening, Elizabeth Dunton.
Say again. I'm sorry. Bring the microphone closer to you, please.
Elizabeth Dunton.
Thank you.
We went to bid for the fireworks for a 2-year contract. We only received 1 bid from the Central Maine Pyrotechnics.
If you don't mind, please, closer to the microphone, repeat the statement.
Okay. We went out to bid for a 2-year contract for the fireworks for the next 2 years. We only received 1 bid from Central Maine Fireworks.
Thank you. Is this the company that did it in the past?
Yes, they've been doing it for the past couple of years, and same thing, they've only been the only people that do bid.
Okay. Do we know how many businesses there are within the New England region that do this?
The original list was 13, and then by calling and sending out emails, it was narrowed down to 7 companies. And then I received responses like they don't want to be bothered to bid, and one person said they're not licensed in Rhode Island, so just not many companies doing it at this time.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from members of this committee? Are there questions from members of the council? Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Director. Can you just give everyone, this comes in every year, could you just give a quick recap of the funds, where the funds come from for your budget for this program?
Yes, so all the funds come from hotel taxes. And so it's not the city's money, it's just what we receive from all our hotels.
Correct, and it's very strictly what you can spend it on,
Yes.
and one of them is the great fireworks display that we get every
Yes,
year.
all the money is allocated.
And you
strictly
did
for-
mention, it's difficult to hear in here, that we have used this company before, correct?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I
And they-
remember they were coming from Maine because we got to decide 2 days before if the weather's going to be right, because once they're
Right.
on the road, we pay
Yeah.
one way or the other, so.
And they've been super to work with. They very safety oriented, and they work with us when we had to cancel last minute. They've been just great and put on a great show. Everybody seems to be happy.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Director.
Good afternoon.
What did we spend in this item last year?
The fireworks last year for the New Year's Eve, it was $15,225. And that's the same price for the 4th of July show. The Gatsby Parade and the National Nights Out was $9,000 to display.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you. My question is, what did we spend in this line item in totality last year for
Okay, I didn't
fireworks?
total it all up. I just, New Year's Eve is $15,225. The Gatsby show was $9,000 last year. The 4th of July was $15,225, and the National Night Out was $9,000.
So we spent about 50,000 last year. I just added the numbers roughly.
Yes.
So 50,000, and you're looking for 2-year bid. Okay,
That would
thank
be
you.
correct.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of this council? Councilwoman Travis.
So Director, this is the first time we're doing it as a total instead of breaking it down?
We've always broken it down. It's just that we're going for the 2-year to lock in the prices for 2 years and to make sure we get the other company so we don't lose it to another town, because we have had another town contact us for our information because they're trying to find a firework company.
Yeah, this seems like it'll work better. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any further questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you. Next is thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 3, bid 2025-210, various replacement automotive parts for police vehicles. Welcome back, Major.
Major Sullivan for the Police Department. The Police Department went out to bid for various auto replacement parts. 9 bids were received. The Police Department recommends awarding the bid to Action Auto Parts, A-Tech Incorporated, Wraps, O'Reilly, and Interstate Batteries. The department is seeking $55,000 in spending authorization, and if approved, funding would be sourced from the department's budget code 30-330. Auto and vehicle maintenance, the bid would begin on November 17th, 2024, and expire on November 16th, 2024.
Thank you, Major. Are there any questions from members of this committee? Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. This question will be for the purchasing director, please.
The councilman is requesting the purchasing director for a question.
Francis Gomez, Purchasing Director.
Hello, Director.
Hello.
Why isn't this particular bid grouped or following the original equipment manufacturer bid? Why is it like 2 separate bids? And why aren't they just following each other one after another?
Well, from my understanding, the OEM is original equipment manufacturer. What is it? So that's original parts, and these are various parts.
Mhm.
And that's the determination of separating the bids is up to the police department, and they're more knowledgeable on why they separated the bid. But yeah, there's original parts and then various parts.
It's up to what department?
The Department of, the Police Department.
Oh, it's up to the police department in the order that they get put on the,
Not in the order. The order that they get put on is numerical. So basically, it goes from the highest amount, which today was the OEM. He's requesting
see.
110,000,
okay,
and this is 55,000.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that all, Councilman?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Major.
Councilman Lattiser, you're more than welcome to sit in my chair if that is easier for you.
Oh, no, thank you. This just motivates me a lot. The sun gives me extra energy.
All
and
right.
it precipitates additional questions. Thank you, though. I
Just wanted to
appreciate the
make the
thought.
offer.
Thank you. You guys are gonna go and buy shades tomorrow.
Next is bid 2025-151, bedding sand for playgrounds. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Public Works is looking to increase the original award of this bid from 80,000 to 131,000, an increase of 51,000. The purpose is for replenishing the beach. This is bedding sand. It's the same sand that we use at playgrounds. So that's the bid that we're piggybacking off of.
Thank you, Director. Out of respect to, because this is an ARPA funds, I would like to divert, if it's okay with this committee, to Councilwoman Travis. Any objections? Councilwoman Travis.
Thank you. Yes, this is, I can speak on, at least I know for the 30 years I've been there, Oakland Beach never got any sand. Button did a couple of times, but it's way overdue, and it's not, and that's 51,000 is the remaining funds that I have from the ARPA. So I think that would have been a good addition. I know they say, oh, you're buying it in November, but we're going to stockpile it, I believe, until the spring so we can put it out on the beach, be nice and clean, and be ready for the good weather.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any questions or comments from members of this committee? Are there any questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. Good evening, Director.
Good evening.
So I'm a little bit confused on the position paper. Councilwoman Travis just stated that this 51,000 is the balance of her opera funds for this money, or this, for the monies to be used to purchase sand for the beach, and that's all well and good. But on the position paper, it states the above bid award to material sand and gravel for bedding sand that will be used at playgrounds throughout the city. So is this going to be used for playgrounds throughout the city, or is this strictly for Councilwoman Travis's ward?
Well, the next sentence says this same sand is appropriate for city beaches.
Mhm.
So the original bid was and is for playground sand,
Mhm.
but it's the same sand that goes on the beaches.
Okay, so this $51,000 worth of sand isn't going to be used for playgrounds throughout the city. It's going to be used strictly for Councilwoman Travis's area.
Correct.
Okay, that's why I just thought it was somewhat confusing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, Director. I'm curious, is there any particular reason why the same type of sand used at the playgrounds is being used at the beach? I'm not sure if there may be different types of sand that are also appropriate for the beach that would be less expensive.
No, I mean, you think of what beach sand is like, it's a soft, powdery kind of sand, which is the same kind of sand that you would want at a playground. So if a kid falls, they're not falling onto a coarser type sand that packs down hard. So, yeah, I mean, we talked to the people both both the playground people and the people at Material Sand and Gravel, and they indicated that this was the appropriate stuff.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you, Director. We are now at the section of the bid package where I will call on members of this committee, the council, and the public. If there is an item that they would like to speak on, I will ask you to identify it and it'll be put aside. Are there members of the committee that would like to speak on one of these bid items? Councilman Foley.
Item 13, rodent control materials. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Foley, correction. Councilman Foley requested item 13, bid 2025-197, found on page 45. Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 5, found on page 18, fire hose service testing, as well as item number 9, 2025-114, found on page 27, purchase of 2 vehicle lifts.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, that's fine, yep. Are there any other members of the council that would like to? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, Chairman. So, bid 2025-246, purchase of 6 benches and 2 trash receptacles, along with 2025-238, Norwood sidewalk repairs.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other items that members would counsel? Are there any items members of the public? Any items for members of the public? Thank you. So as always, what we'll do is we'll just go in order. So we'll go in order of the item numbers. And the first one would be item number 5, bid 2025-214, fire hose service testing. This is requested by Councilman Lattiser, and it is found on page 18. Good evening, Chief. Please identify, and then Councilman Lattiser, you have the floor.
Good evening, Assistant Chief Umbenhauer from the Fire Department.
Thank you. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Chief, in your position paper, it says when comparing the 2 bids we received, the vendor was not selected. The vendor that was not selected did not hold an ISO 10720 accreditation. What is that?
That's the ISO accreditation that accredits them to be a certifying body. So before that, anybody can, according to the NFPA standard for hose service testing, the body that actually does the testing needs to be certified by ISO to have the certification. So they need to be accredited that their certification processes are correct. So that they calibrate at the recommended intervals, their equipment, that they perform the tests as prescribed, all that stuff. They go to ISO, they look at all their equipment and their procedures and their policies, and they say, yes, you are certifying this equipment under the current ISO standard. One held it, the other one did not hold an accreditation.
And that requirement, is that a requirement from NFPA?
Yeah, NFPA requires that when we do our hose testing, that the person that is certifying the hose is ISO certified. Yeah, holds an ISO certification.
Has this company bid on this before?
They bid under another name previously. So they bid under, I believe, like Hudson Valley Testers before. The last time that we bid on it. This year they bid on it. They bid out of but I believe they're like a co-op franchise company. So they kind of allow people to go into business for themselves, use their name and their bid processes. That's why it's a local Newport address. But we have never, the other company is a well-known nationally certified company. The other one, we weren't familiar with them. We weren't familiar with that they even were in Rhode Island. We tried to reach out to them, and we never got a phone. Our phone calls went unanswered, and their voicemail boxes are always full and don't leave messages. So we weren't even trying to get a hold of them to see if they were in a process of gaining that certification and that accreditation, but we couldn't even get a hold of them.
How long does it take to get this certification done?
I have no idea. I would assume that it's depends on how close you are to being an accredited company.
Because I think I saw in some of the paperwork that they had indicated that they would in fact become ISO certified if they were awarded the bid.
Their exact statement was, it wasn't quite that specific. It was, if awarded, we can look into obtaining this accreditation.
It was, say that again?
We can look into
Okay.
obtaining the accreditation. So they haven't even looked into the accreditation.
Okay.
The fact that they're putting a bid in to do this type of NFPA certification, and they don't even know that they need to be ISO certified, is very concerning to us.
Particularly where you say one of the principals of this company was involved with another company that bid before?
Yeah, it was another company called Hudson Valley out of New York, and I guess they franchise off to local people who want to start their own business and use their name and their bid processes. Even we reached out to the Newport Fire Department, who this business is supposed to be behind, and they had no idea who this was. So they may be a starting company that's up and running and starting to come into the area, but they're not at the point yet where they can come out and do these certifications. In 2 years, they may be a valid bidder for us, and we'll look at them again.
Does the fire department put together the list of bidders that they are requesting to bid?
We supply the purchasing department when we put the bid together with a list of vetted vendors that we know, that we're familiar with. And they add any vendor, I believe they add any vendors that have previously bid on contracts similar to that. And that's who the bids go out to. But we put all of the known hose testing companies that are known throughout the fire service, all the national companies.
Sure.
We did do Hudson Valley because they bid on the last one. So we did put it out to them. This is probably how this company got a hold of the bid.
And when you or whomever sends out these bid requests to the vendors, is it included in the bid request, in this case, that they're ISO certified?
Yep, that was in the specifications. They
Okay.
took exception to it. So specification number 2 that they took exception to clearly stated the ISO certification
Okay.
requirement.
All right, good. So it's my understanding that the firefighters who drive the trucks, tankers, ladder trucks, whatever, are not required to have a CDL license. Is that correct?
If I may interject, Councilman, we're speaking about the purchase of hoses and the OPM product.
Yeah, and?
You're asking about,
Yeah, because
Drivers.
that's what it says in the position paper. I'm asking about a CDL driver's license. Because if you read the position paper,
please do.
it says, did not employ crew members that have a valid commercial driver's license. So I'm asking questions pertaining to that statement. So Chief, is my understanding correct or is it not?
Your understanding is correct. I believe in the state of
Okay.
Rhode Island, the fire department is exempt from the CDL requirements just for fire apparatus and only in their position during the duties of their position.
And to test these, let me back up. How many feet of hose do we have that need to be tested?
Right now, about 53,000 feet.
53,000 feet.
Correct.
And the difference between the low bidder who may not qualify because of this ISO requirement and the high bidder is about 40%, right? Something like that, from 30 cents to 42 cents a foot.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
about that. Yep.
It's about 40%. And the other reason is you say that additional payroll expenses by having to hire personnel to oversee and drive the fire apparatus. Why would these, or whoever's doing this testing, why would they be required to have a CDL when our own firefighters are not required to have one?
Because the state law exempts firefighters. These are not firefighters. This is a private company.
Okay. And if they're testing hoses, beyond driving out of the barn itself, the fire station, into the parking lot to test the hose, do they have to drive these vehicles anywhere else to test hoses?
No, they have to drive. We'll drive the truck to them. We don't put them over the road with the vehicle. Typically, we'll drive it to them because they do it at one specific location where they have a water supply that's adequate to do the testing and enough space. Typically, do it like City Park, where we have enough space to spread out because it's 100-foot lengths of hose that they need to be working with. So they can't just do it at the fire station.
So
But packing and unpacking the hose on the truck requires driving the vehicle. You don't pick it up and put it on the truck. You drive over it and pick it up from the back.
which goes to your requirement of them having a CDL.
Correct. Last time that we had it, the successful bidder did not have CDL drivers. They couldn't drive our trucks because we don't allow that. So we had to actually assign somebody there for the entire day just to back the truck up for them and drive it forward over the hose when it was time.
One day?
So I believe it was, they said 3. I believe it wound up being 4 days, if not 5, depending by the time they got
4 days for a firefighter to drive the truck back and forth? To where?
just in a parking lot,
To where?
just through the parking lot and back. They were just driving it to pick up the hose.
Just drive around the parking lot?
Correct. And we felt that when we put it out to bid this time, we thought it was kind of unreasonable that they didn't have somebody on their staff that could at least drive the hose around the parking lot, drive the truck around the parking lot, because we wouldn't allow them without a CDL license to drive.
And we have 53,000 feet of hose
Correct.
at, hold on, bear with me 1 minute. So do you think that it would cost the fire department $7,000 in salary and benefits for one firefighter to drive the truck around the parking lot for 4 days?
Not by any means.
Okay.
But if this company was accredited and had an ISO accreditation, then we would be considering them for this position for the bid award. But they're not qualified to do the testing,
Okay.
so we didn't even bother to do the calculations.
So that's the hard and tall fact of why they would not include it, is because of that ISO requirement.
Correct. I just, in my position paper, I wanted to mark every exception that they made to the bid specifications.
Because if they were required, certainly it would be to the benefit of the taxpayers to have one of our own firefighters drive a truck around a parking lot for $7,000.
Then I would have definitely made the
Okay.
calculation before I made the suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there any questions from members of this council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next, we go on to item number 9, bid 2025-114, purchase of 2 vehicle lifts. Good evening, Director. This was requested by Councilman Lattisaur. Director, I'm going to ask you to identify, but first, I would like to state that that back in, I believe it was October 15th, your purchasing, I'm going to say Director Christy,
Business manager.
Business Manager, thank you, Christy Moretti said that she was not going to be at this meeting, so the council was notified she would not be at the meeting, and we did ask and request that any concerns or questions go, considering that you're filling in, be asked before the meeting. So please identify, and then Councilman Lattiser, you ask the question, and you'll take it over.
Eric Earls, Public Works.
Thank you. So the items that were not included, those are the items that have the check mark alongside of them at the position paper?
That's correct.
And one of those items that was not included, and we had a lot of conversation about these vehicle lifts, One of those items is a 9,000-pound capacity rolling jack for $12,036. That wasn't included in the original bid. So if I add up those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that have been noted as not included, I come up with a total of $15,705.50, not $16,497.50.
Respectfully, your math is incorrect.
It is?
Yes.
How's that?
Do it again. Those 6 numbers add up to...
Mr. Chair, may I approach?
To the committee table?
No, to the director.
Thank you. Yes.
You're missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 here. So you're probably missing the 880. There you go. Believe me, you did the math 100 times anticipating this. I did the math 100 times anticipating this.
Understood. Councilman, make sure that mic is on nice and loud, please.
It is on real loud. I'll even stand up for this because, believe it or not, my calculator missed one of those items. That's what happened.
You're
I got
human.
the proof. Here's the ticket from my calculator. It missed the
Understood.
numbers, not me. No.
Understood. You're human.
Admittedly, I missed an item, $792, and the numbers of $16,497.50 are correct. May
Thank
I
you.
sit down, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, in this council chamber, we prove humans exist. Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of Council President McAllister?
Sorry, I didn't hear Councilman Lattiser. What did you say there?
Only if I don't have to stand up again. I'm glad you all appreciated that.
No need.
You know, so in 12 years, you found Lattiser wrong. Oh my God. God help us. What's coming next?
Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there any questions from members of this council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you. Thank you, Director. Next is item number 10, which is bid 2025-246. Purchase 6 benches and 2 trash receptacles. This was requested by Councilman Ricks. Councilman Ricks, you have the floor, and then Director, please identify.
Eric Earls, Public Works.
Thank you. And I also see that there is an item here relative to Ward 4 as well. So specifically as to Ward 2, I had spoken with Chief Facenti on this in particular as we were taking a look at that gazebo park. As you may recall, there was a bid previously for certain repairs to the gazebo. So while we were looking at that, also looking at using ARPA funds in terms of improving the grounds there, ensuring ADA compliance. I believe that the existing benches and trash receptacles are about the age of the gazebo, so a bit over 20 years old. They're showing their age, and also they are not considered ADA compliant. These benches and trash receptacles would be considered ADA compliant, so more accessible for folks with different disabilities. That's, of course, what we want to see around the city. And the benches are also more consistent with the types of benches that we see in recent years being placed at different locations around the city. So for those reasons, I would request support for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McElroy, is there anything you'd like to follow up with before I turn it
Yeah,
over?
I would just say that the one bench I'm looking for Ward 4 is a bench that we would like to have installed at the Walter Santos Overlook. The overlook has been prepared for it. It's just waiting for the bench to be installed. I ask for approval of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Are there comments from members of the council? Council President McAllister.
Thank you. Just a friendly reminder to my colleagues on there that we have it, this ARPA neighborhood thing docketed for the next meeting as well, and that's the last call. So please, if you have more, this is just for the federal funds to get those docketed for the next meeting, or any remaining funds are going to go to the paving line item. So that's a reminder to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any further questions from members of this council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you, Director. Next, we will go on to item number 13, which is bid 2025-197, rodent control materials. This is found on page 45. Director, please identify. Then Councilman Foley, you have the floor.
Eric Earls, Public Works.
How you doing, Director? Quick question. Are we spending more on rodent control or less or the same?
We budgeted a little bit more this year. But as far as, I mean, this will allow us to spend that, but we are, I think we went from 5,000 to 6,000 in the budget or thereabouts. It wasn't a huge increase, but we are trying to be more proactive with it. And we have seen more activity, unfortunately. So I anticipate that we will be spending more than we have in years past.
That was the point of my question in a way. Is there more activity? Is that what we're seeing citywide?
Yeah, I believe so. We still have, and I don't know them specifically, but there's still hotspot areas. But we have seen the radius kind of getting bigger around those areas. But we try, and part of the program is not just the boxes and the bait and the poison. It's education, right? Compost bins, bird feeders, those types of things are food sources. Not picking up after your pet waste. And so when we go out and visit these properties, we're looking for those things as well as the evidence of rodents. And so we hope that we're chipping away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And it's funny, I read an interesting article, not even a week and a half ago, I want to say. And when cities are doing projects, and I can tell you that it's not just the rats, it's also the coyote, any wildlife, down over off of Cedar Swamp Road in Ward 3 where the airport is, we have that whole airport sewer line going through. Well, all those trucks going in, clearing of the bushes, clearing of the just the change of the ecological within the animals, it's pushing them out. A lot of buildings that sat stagnant, whether it be the old schools that the city finally sold, or whether it be buildings that were just sitting abandoned that are now being utilized, knocked down, that changes the entire system. So there are definitely challenges on top of the items that you mentioned too, Director, but there was a great article. I really wish I had a reference, and I just don't. It described that type of increase that cities are going through. Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to follow up with that too. I've got calls from areas that never saw rats before that see them now. So I think there is definitely getting an increase of them. So, seeing that we went up a little bit, I hope this is going to help all around the city, because People, they always said they always seen mice, but we never saw a rat before. Now we're seeing rats. So I'm just concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I'd also just like to chime in briefly. I'm glad that the administration is staying on top of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from members of the council? Any comments from members of the public? Thank you, Director. Item number 16, requested by Councilman Ricks, is bid 2025-238 Norwood Sidewalk Repairs. This is found on page 62. Director, please identify. Councilman Ricks, you have the floor.
Eric Earls, Public Works.
Thank you. Similarly, this is an item that Chief Vicente and I discussed, similar to the last item. It's something when you walk over there, you do notice those dangerous conditions with that particular sidewalk. It's a very public space. It's a matter of perhaps a tenth of a mile, couple of tenths of a mile down from Norwood Elementary School, right there at the intersection of Norwood Ave and Patuxent Ave, which is one of the busiest and most heavily foot trafficked areas of that whole neighborhood, right by the Norwood branch of the Warwick Public Library as well. And so for all of those reasons, gets a lot of foot traffic, as well as being a major event space for the neighborhood, where typically that gazebo park has about 4 events per year, such as neighborhood concerts, food truck events. So very important for us to make sure that those sidewalks are safe, make sure that we're doing whatever we can to prevent trip and fall, slip and fall type injuries there. And I think that it's also important for the city here to lead by example without touching on, without discussing whatsoever, an item that I have docketed, which is of course entirely separate, and I'm not going to mention that whatsoever. I think that it's very important for the city to lead by example when it comes to these sidewalks, because sidewalk repairs, they are very expensive. The city can afford it. But we see the atrocious conditions of so many sidewalks all across the city, and it's a real hazard. So there's a lot of value in having good, well-maintained sidewalks that create those safe neighborhoods and allow people to just feel safe where they take the sidewalk instead of stepping foot into the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. No questions. I just want to kind of echo the comments of Councilman Ricks regarding sidewalks. Not only is it a potential danger to the folks who happen to be walking on these sidewalks, and I agree with you, there are, I think we all have plenty of them that we can identify in our own wards, but it's also a potential liability for the city on those sidewalks, because people file lawsuits all the time regarding tripping hazards, and once those hazards are identified and presented, they are now on the record and sit out there as a potential liability. So I concur with you, and I'm glad to see that this purchase is in place here for this item, because it certainly gets me to thinking of some areas in my own ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions, comments from members of this council? Questions, comments from members of the public? May I have a motion on PCR 100-24, resolution relative to bids?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the Warwick Finance Committee for today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next committee to meet is the Ordinance Committee, and that will start at 6 p.m. So we'll see you back here at 6 p.m.
Avenue south of Post Road and Atlantic Avenue between Post Road and Warwick Avenue. This would be second passage, and it's Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I'll move favorable action, and if I may make a brief comment.
Of course.
Thank you. So as mentioned last time, this is really a matter of housekeeping here, making sure that it's just that much easier for the police to enforce no through trucking on these various streets when it has long been on the books that we already have a list of various streets, including, for example, Fairfax Drive, as well as others, say Sand Pond, Buckland, etc., that are intended to prevent these large vehicles from using city streets as a cut-through, causing damage to those city streets, when really they should be sticking to those state roads that are specifically designed to handle vehicles of that size. Beyond that, it is a safety issue when we have these massive vehicles rumbling right through densely populated residential areas where there are more likely to be kids playing. There's a lack of sidewalks on a lot of these streets, and so children, really people of all ages, are there walking in the streets. So this is more of a housekeeping issue, make it a little bit clearer, easier to enforce the no-through trucking through that neighborhood to avoid those various cut-throughs. And that's why there are a total of 5 streets listed as part of this ordinance. And I'm pleased that we were able to receive a favorable traffic study to that same effect. This is, of course, also separate from any negotiation that may happen or instruction that may happen by, say, the school committee or school administration when it comes to a contract for any work on any high school that would involve, say, planning the specific routes that would be taken. Totally separate topic, obviously not in front of the city council, but because that concern was voiced by constituents, I want to just make sure to mention that this does nothing to prevent that from happening. This does nothing to necessarily encourage that happening. That would be an entirely separate matter. Although this would naturally prevent so-called through trucking, which is different from a situation where there is a destination inside the neighborhood. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly second this motion.
Any questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Chairman. Through the chair, question to Councilman Ricks. So I'm asking this question because just recently over the weekend, I received 2 calls asking kind of for the similar support. And there's a lot of heavy traffic, trailer trucks, fuel trucks, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't had a chance to reach out to the police department, but you just remind me, do you know what is the penalty for anyone that's violating this ordinance?
Very good question. I believe, and I would have to double check on this to be certain, but I believe that it is the general traffic penalty that one would be looking at. And there is a certain level of discretion when it comes to that. I know that there are times where on the first instance, a warning is given. Often that has been enough. For instance, there was an issue with Walmart trucks going down Fairfax Drive. It's rather confusing to me exactly why there would be Walmart trucks on Fairfax Drive in the first place. But that was apparently a regular occurrence. There was a warning, and they changed their route. But obviously, if one warning doesn't do the trick, then I'm sure that the driver being issued a fine and having to take that back to corporate will send the right message.
But you're not familiar what the fine would be?
So I believe that the chairman is grabbing that right now from the Code of Ordinances. I believe that it would be the general fine under the ordinances of you know, just in case I'm wrong, I don't want to speak on
Sure,
the mic,
sure.
on the record, and put false information out there. But I believe that there's a series of fines that range from a relatively low amount to the maximum possible amount for third and subsequent of $500. I believe that that would be the absolute maximum. And then, of course, with any of that, there is a certain level of discretion when it comes to the initial enforcement as well as through the municipal court.
I'm curious because not just this particular issue, but we have, just lots of fines in place for a lot of things. And the fines have not kept up with the times. And often it occurs that, I'm going to take my chance because if I don't get caught once, I'm ahead of the game. If I don't get caught twice, I'm really ahead of the game. And I think that perhaps, at some point in the future, some of these fines, at least from the local level, need to be revisited if there's things that we can do, and if not, then need to start sitting down with the General Assembly, as we did with the building permit fines, as an example. There's ways to do it. I think a lot of these fines have not kept up with the times, and it's not enough to discourage a trailer truck from, cutting down Pilgrim Parkway instead of, doing a 2-mile detour when they get a mile per gallon. Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I may, I would just wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that many of us have seen on TV or otherwise, perhaps in person, situations where you see a delivery truck and you see literally a handful of orange tickets right there by the side of the window because it's literally a cost of doing business rather than actually obeying the law. I would also concur with Councilman Lattiser that especially, I would say especially when it comes to these large corporations and the like, I don't think that the General Assembly does give us sufficient authority to fine repeat offenders. I think, though, that really we need to keep up with the enforcement because I'm not even sure how many particular companies or individuals have actually received that, say, third or maximum fine as it currently exists. So I think that there's certainly work to be done on all fronts, and I'm happy that this bill will at least take a small step in advancing that, in making this ordinance of the larger ordinance of the no-through trucking through that neighborhood more generally by making each one of these separate streets enforceable. I hope that this is a small step in the right direction that ultimately will come down to enforcement and having sufficient fines. Thank you.
Any other members of the council have any comments or questions? Any members of the public? And to Councilman Lattiser's question, it looks like it's probably a general violation. So it's a fine not exceeding $500 or imprisonment not exceeding 30 days. So not a gentle fine by any means if it's the general. Do we have a motion on the proposed ordinance modification?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So ordinance is concluded at 6:14 p.m.
The next committee to meet is intergovernmental, and that can start at 6:20. So we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes.
is in session. The first order on the agenda is the acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on August 19th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
Move favorable action.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The first item on the calendar is PCR 82-24, resolution relative to the city council meeting calendar for 2025. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yep, this is need to get the calendar set for next year so bids can go out and the purchasing agents can start going out with all that information. So if you have any questions, you guys can work it out. I won't be here. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee?
So I have one, and it's actually a proposal. And I can do it on the full council floor if preferred rather than in committee. But I'm going to propose September 8th get changed to the 15th. Even though it puts us back to back, that's when we're playing catch up anyway, because we're going from single meeting months to the first month where we have 2 meetings. So having back to back honestly shouldn't be much of a hardship considering it just helps us get caught up. The alternative is to put the September 8th to the 29th, but that somewhat defeats the purpose of what I just said. I'd rather have the back-to-backs right away after starting the double meeting months, because again, we get caught up. But whatever the chair's pleasure as far as either propose the amendment now or the full council.
I'm fine doing it now. So,
In
wanna
that
do a
case,
motion?
I motion to change to the September 8th, 2025 meeting to September 15th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye, but they're gonna have you do the,
The council have any questions, comments? Councilman Lattiser.
My preference would be to keep it as is. Is there any other context on the change? Is there a business reason to make the change?
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Any other context on why making the change?
I was waiting for permission. Is it okay?
Yes.
All right. I simply can't attend the September 8th meeting. It's not possible for me. But once the 15th hits, I'm free and clear.
Any other comments? Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Move favorable action as
Second.
amended.
You already seconded.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That passes. It is now 6:24 and the Intergovernmental Committee is adjourned.
The next committee to meet is Public Properties, and that will start at 6:40, so we'll see you at 6:40. Also, we do have public comment this evening, and there's a sign-up sheet on the podium if you'd like to be heard during public comment. Thank you. The next meeting can start at this time. Public Properties. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, sir.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 6:41 p.m. First up, acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on October 7, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have two items on the agenda. First item, this is up for second passage. Councilman Sinapi. It is PCO-11-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick. Applicant, Rhode Island Custom Builders. Applicant, 1515 Centerville Road. This is Assessor's Plat 251, lots 11 and 12. Do we have a recommendation?
Request favorable action.
Thank you. Any discussion, members of the committee? Any discussion, members of the council? Any discussion, members of the public? All right, so we had our first hearing, first passage as a public hearing. This is for second passage, not a public hearing. Therefore, we may proceed with a vote. Do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Second and last on the agenda is PCO 12-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick. Rhode Island Custom Builders applicant, 1187 Post Road, which is Assessor's Plat 296, lots 162 and 579. This is inside Ward 2, so I am named on this item. For the reasons that were discussed at much more length during the public hearing, I would recommend favorable action. I'll open this up. Any discussion, members of the committee? Any discussion, members of the council? Any discussion, members of the public? Please come up to the mic and please identify yourself. Oh, pardon us.
You can hear
There
me.
we go.
You can
Now
hear me.
the
I got a
mic
big
is on.
mouth. You can hear me. My name is Rick Casella. I live in Ward 3. And my question is, I noticed on both of these, just the detail that you have in here doesn't really give anybody that doesn't know where 251 lots. Is there a way to get into this brochure the actual address of where this is happening? Sometimes it's easier to say lot, plat, and lot. That's the corner of, just so people can kind of get a picture in their mind. It just seems like the numbers are all correct, but I have no idea what the change in the ordinance is. Do I have to wait till the next meeting when they bring somebody from the company to tell us what's going on? Am I wrong?
So,
I'm learning as I go.
so it actually does in the title of the ordinance, it does list the two locations. We are past the first item on the agenda, but looking at the agenda, you can see that just as with the second, it does specifically name right after the applicant and before the assessor's plat and lot. On this item, it lists 1187 Post Road.
Where?
So,
Where is that?
so
On this piece of paper where it shows these two that you just read off, am I missing something? Where is it? Oh, I thought that was I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was the address of the builder. See, there you go. See, now I'm clarified. All right. I withdraw my question.
Quite all right. That's why we have these meetings. Yeah, public comment always welcome. Any other questions, comments, members of the public? Hearing none, I will move for favorable action on the second passage. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the City Council Committee meeting on public properties, land use, and community affairs at 6:46 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We will see you at 7 o'clock for the start of the full council meeting. And just a reminder, we do have public comments, so there's a sign-up sheet on the podium if you'd like to be heard during public comments. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I call the October 21st, 2024 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Ms. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Snappy? Ms. Travis?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Councilman Howe, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Good evening, everyone. We're now on general communications. This is the announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I have one community event. The 27th annual Greenwood Halloween Parade will be on Halloween evening. There's a block party from 4 to 7, and the parade kicks off at 5:10. All are welcome. It is a great time, and everyone is welcome to join us on Halloween in Greenwood. Do any of my colleagues have anything under general communications, congratulations, condolences, or community events? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This past Saturday, 2 great events happened in Ward 3. First was Fire Safety Day, and I want to thank the Warwick Fire Department, the administration, and our citizens for participating in this. It's a great event where it's a touch a truck, as well as they give out safety equipment lessons. They do demonstrations, show everything that they do, the great work that they put into it to keep the city and the citizens safe, and the training that goes through that. The Warwick Police Department also, I must commend. They show up in force as well, and they put on demonstrations as well as have community outreach with the kids and the parents, and everyone had candy to give away in the Halloween spirit. The second one was the Sand Pond Spooky Path. I want to congratulate the Sand Pond community. They had the Spooky Path, and once again, I was happy with my good friend Brian Napa to go ahead and escort the people from the parked area to the path. As you know, it's on Puritan Drive. It can be a busy street after the Rotary, but it's wonderful. This is a community that gets together and they advocate for that pond, and they also find a way to improve, beautify that area, and they've done a phenomenal job. Just a great event, very family friendly. So I want to commend those. So once again, Warwick with 2 wonderful family friendly events in one day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. Again, we lost another business owner in Oakland Beach. Tony Lombardi from New England Lemonade passed away. So I'd like to ask for a moment of silence.
Yes, we'll have a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to give everyone an update regarding the progress that we're making over at Del Judas Park. It's coming along very well, as some of you may know, and for those that don't, I appropriated $145,000 of the COVID money that was assigned to the council members, and as of now, the basketball court has been completely removed and replaced. It's been professionally lined off, and not only the children, but the adults have been out there enjoying it. We have 2 additional handicap parking spaces, which will be eventually leading up to new swings. There's 6 new swings that should be in shortly. I spoke with Dean Pimentel earlier today, who's really been spearheading this project and just doing an outstanding job with that. So hopefully they'll be arriving shortly. And then DPW is going to be coming in hopefully shortly as well, installing 2 new benches right at the flag area, as well as putting in the new playground mulch at the playground area and all new perimeter ties, barriers, for however you want to describe it. But that's a great project. The people in that area are really ecstatic because for years that area has never qualified for the CDGB grants, and it's been difficult to try and find the resources to upgrade that park. So we are getting there and hopefully be there soon. And by the way, that's also named in honor of John Del Judas Sr., who has been very active or was very active throughout the city. So thank you, Mr. President.
And thank you. And that was a congratulations, correct? Congratulations. Thank you. Councilman Gephardt.
Speaking of community events, this past Saturday, the Coesit Neighborhood Association organized a beach cleanup down at Chippewa-Noxet Point. We had about 20 volunteers come out. We got many bags of trash and old tires and metal rods and all sorts of interesting things we pulled out of there. So I just want to thank the community for coming together to do that important work, and thank the governor's litter program for helping support us in that. So thank you.
Anyone else for general communications? Okay, hearing none, we're into executive communications. There are none. A is the acceptance of the minutes held for the council meeting on October 7th. Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next up is public comment. I just want to do one last call. Is anyone else would like to sign up for public comment? Okay. Rule 41, after general communications and prior to the consent calendar at the last scheduled meeting of the City Council each month, there shall be a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes during which citizens may comment about Warwick City government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment should not exceed 30 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. Each citizen signed up and present shall have not to exceed 5 minutes to speak, provided, however, that if more than 6 citizens are signed up and present, the 30 minutes will be split evenly among speakers. Time shall not be transferable among speakers. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of the earlier of all speakers concluding their allotted time or 30 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires a unanimous vote of the council. We have 3 individuals who have signed up to speak this evening. The first one is Rob C. If we can just make sure the mic is on. Thank you.
Rob Cody, Ward 7. I have a quick message for the voters. At the end of what was clearly the most foolish mayoral debate in history, which never covered any of the substantial issues facing Warwick, Mr. Boccozzi stated in his final comment that people who criticize him are keyboard cowards and morons. Quote, those comments from the guy who spends the majority of his day on Facebook, a high school dropout, kicked out of the Marines for going AWOL, 17 default judgments against him in the court totaling $88,000, ignored dozens of hand-delivered summonses to appear before the court, 7 IRS liens against his home totaling $33,000 for cheating on his income taxes and working under the table, of which I have all the documents. At the age of 63, didn't have the $5,000 to pay back the city on his healthcare co-pays that weren't deducted from his pay. So to pay back the city and the IRS, he had to remortgage his home. That's the guy in the corner office making the fiscal decisions for the future of this city. Yet, he also refused to come before the council and the taxpayers to answer questions about the city's 5-year forecast. Yet he calls other people cowards. Maybe if he got off Facebook and tried to immerse himself in the reality of the unfunded liabilities of this city instead of running the corner office like a high school popularity contest, he would learn something. Now I understand he's negotiated more raises for the upcoming contracts of police and municipal. And if I had to guess, he'll probably try to jam these contracts through before the 4 outgoing council members are replaced after the election. And I'll bet money that Councilman McAllister will docket that. I would suggest to the residents of Warwick to ignore any candidate that the 4 council members, Howe, McAllister, McElroy, and convicted criminal Travis endorse. Their records speak for themselves. Mr. McAllister, to date, during his entire time as a council member, has refused to answer one financial question posed to him about contracts or other city expenditures, and only refers to the question to the administration, ignoring the concerns of the taxpayer. Mr. Howe continues to miss errors on bid calculations, yet jams every expenditure through without the thought of the impact of the taxpayers. And if you recall, even held an illegal meeting to jam the fire contract through just a couple of days before Christmas, ignoring the concerns of the taxpayer. Mr. McElroy is well known for never returning calls from his constituents, and is also well known as the only elected official that can fall into rapid eye movement sleep while standing vertical. And now he wants to be a state rep. God help us. And last but not least is the Ward 6 convicted criminal Travis. The people of Warwick have serious issues to face due to historical poor choices by council members and mayors. I will be happy to see these 4 council members removed, and I only hope that the high school dropout in the corner office is removed as well.
Thank you. The next speaker is Pat M.
Patrick Maloney, 11 Dawson Avenue. I typically get up and I say, I'm a Warwick resident, but tonight I'm going to say I'm candidate for mayor, and this is my statement for the city council. I've always been a nice guy. After watching the city council meeting from May 25th, 2023, and seeing the mayor fight to make sure his kid that works for the city received a 29% raise. 8 of the 9 of these city council members voted to give the 29% raise and not stop the reduction that City Councilman Laddiser put before you. As a small business owner of Warwick, I don't hire people that left the military before their time was up or left with an other than honorable discharge, which somebody on this city council confirmed for me. I do not hire people who are broke and can't handle their personal finances. Why? I gave a person a chance once and they stole from me. I fired them immediately when I found out that they stole. They cannot be trusted. Forget being mayor. I wouldn't hire Frank to stand in my shop and touch the register because I don't trust him. In his own words, I was buying materials for jobs with credit cards and I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. The mayor, whose salary is $100,000, said he's on an installment plan to pay off $33,000 he owes the IRS, but would not disclose the details. He burned local businesses for $88,000. That's a quote from a local newspaper. He owed $5,000 to the city for healthcare because he didn't check his paycheck to see if healthcare was being taken out. City records show that 2 years ago, now 4 years ago, the IRS filed a lien with the city on the property that the Picozzi's own. Mayor Picozzi's response when he was running for office, my greatest qualification is that I'm not a politician. I owe no one. When I get elected, I have no debts, no political debts whatsoever. I still have personal debts, and I'm going to hire the best people and put them in positions. Well, now he has debts, and now he's paying them. He owes the firefighters. How did he pay them? He didn't follow up on the firefighter overtime from the 2013 side agreement that he vowed he would. An account report paid for by the city calculated excess payments to the firefighters of $386,000. Frank promised to hire the best people and put them in their positions. Who did he hire for those positions? In May 25th, 2023, according to the Warwick Beacon, Frank, who ran on no nepotism, has a daughter working for the city clerk's office and got a pay raise increase that a city councilman opposed. Once again, Councilman Lattiser. The councilman and the mayor had a verbal exchange in city council meeting, according to a local newspaper. The councilman also attempted to make several minor budget adjustments. One of these had Mayor Picozzi on his feet. This is my daughter, and you all stood here. You all stood here, and you allowed that to go through when the contractually obligated raise for everybody in that area was 2.75%. You put a 29% raise in the budget for the position, and you brought them from $42,020 to $55,390. Another person that I just found out, one of the best people the mayor's putting forward, is Tammy Bouchard Baker. She was recently put forward for an appointment on a board. I'll give you her background. Last year, she claimed bankruptcy, and she was charged with DUI of liquor, drugs, child under 13 passenger first offense, possession of Schedule 1 through 5 controlled substance 10 grams or less, possession of Schedule 1 through 5 controlled substance 10 grams or less, refusal to submit to a chemical test. This is all on record for everyone to see. So when Mayor Picozzi says that he can run this city and he's in control of his finances, and he gets in front of you and threatens you.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you. And he threatens this city council and says, this is my daughter, when he did not stand up for any other employee that was put before this city council for also having a reduction in their pay. He only got up here for one person. And afterwards, you stood by and you let it go. It's despicable and it's disgusting. And if I'm elected mayor, I'll work with the city council. But I will not put up with that behavior. I expect better. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Richard C.
My name's Rick Casella. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I'm a candidate for city council in Ward 3 as a Republican. And that's a tough act to follow. I'm not going to rip anybody. I am going to compliment Vinnie Gephardt for the posting he made the other day about decorum and good sportsmanship and how to treat people and how not to air what they might think is their dirty laundry on the internet, especially on my Facebook page. So I'll just give you a quick backstory just so that we know what context we're in. Last Wednesday, I went to the Weathersfield Commons and they had a little meet the candidates. So I made a posting of how nice it was set up and how nice the people were. It was nice to meet them all. And I hope to be able to serve them as their councilman. And about an hour and a half later, I got Kim Winneman, who's the chairman of, I believe, the Democratic City Committee, came up to me and said, I hope you didn't pay for those palm cards because I made a couple of typographical errors, and I think I proofed them without wearing my glasses. And so I said, well, you know, I'm not perfect. And I just let it go. It was fine. It was no problem. I like Kim. She seemed like a nice person since I've known her over the years. And about an hour later, I got a text, I think it was, from Tim Howe, the outgoing councilman. And he was saying how he was going to tattle on me and, you know, like kind of like picking at me saying, how did you make this stupid mistake? He didn't say those words. I'm paraphrasing. And I'm going to call the Warwick City Committee because you spelled Warwick wrong and you're not the past and the present of the E.T. Wyman. So I was like, you know, I'm glad you and Kim had a laugh, and I never said that I was perfect. And I left it at that. I took the high road. I'm not going to let them poke the bear and make a big deal about it. So anyway, the next day or 2 days later, I got a a text from Tim was kind of in my, I'm not really good with the computer stuff, but it was in my string of things, a reply to one of my things. And he said he had a constituent that had a question about my situation with my wife, because we don't live in the same house or we don't live in the same ward. And am I, it said, because since you said you were separated, are you going to take the job? We hope that you get your marriage back together, because the sanctity of marriage is great. And when you and the missus get it back together, you're going to quit the council and force this expensive special election. And so just in that one, so I said, Tim, just send me the information of the name of the person that has questions for me. I would gladly call them and answer their question. But my answer to him was, I intend on being the councilman from Ward 3, and I will serve as long as the residents will have me. That's pretty concise. That says it all. I'm legal as far as the ballot goes. I live in Ward 3, so you don't have to ask Ward 3, Ward 1, question mark, question mark, question mark, or married, question mark, question mark. So this is the kind of stuff you're getting from a guy that really, I don't know what he's got with me. We've had some words in the past. I don't agree with his, some of the stuff he's done in the past, but I never really poked at him that way. So he's poking at me, and he's getting into my private stuff, my family business, the way the dynamic of my family is with 2 adult boys, and the fact that my wife and I are lucky enough to have more than one property, and I live in one and she lives in the other. And how we make that work has been the best thing that's ever happened to our marriage. So it's none of your business how me and my wife live, okay? You might live better than me, Tim, but it's none of your business, and you shouldn't be putting it on my internet.
You have 1 minute,
okay?
Mr. Casella.
Yeah, thanks. So basically, in that one email, there were 3 lies. One is that I said I was separate, which I never did. 2 is that you follow up with your constituents' concerns and questions, because that's a bunch of baloney. I don't believe that anyone I've met has said that you've ever called them back. And number 3 is that you care about the expenditure of all people to be concerned about Joe Gallucci said it's $20,000 for a special election. Of all people to be concerned about a special election and how much it costs, you're not the guy, okay? You've been spending. I don't want to get into any details. I want to make this quick, so I'm sorry. I want to throw this out there so you have the answer for your constituent, because I know you never got me his name, so I'm assuming he's out there, but I don't know who he is. Just in closing, my son Henry is a graduate of Virginia Military Institute. He's a captain in the U.S. Army in the 10th Mountain Division, and he's currently deployed in Iraq.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Casella.
I'm not done. He's deployed in Iraq.
Thank you, sir.
And you know what? For my son to have to go to bed and look at the computer and see that somebody's poking at his mom and dad's marriage
Sir, thank you very
from
much.
so far away,
Sir, your time
then
is up.
I think that is disgraceful, and I'm sorry that I
Sir,
have to
thank you very
be
much
like
for
that.
your
Yeah,
comments.
yes.
Sir,
It's
thank you
just
for your
that,
comments.
It's just way out of line, Tim.
Thank
got
you for
no
your
honor,
comments.
And you're that's a low
Thank you for
class
your
move.
comments, sir.
It doesn't help your good friend.
Thank you
My
for your
opponent
comments.
is a very nice guy doing that kind of thing.
Thank you for your comments, sir. We're now on number 1 on the agenda, the consent calendar. First up is PCR 100-24, resolution relative to bids, committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2025-206, 2025-205, 2025-210, 2025-151, 2025-214, 2025-201, 2025-200, 2025-211, 2025-114, 2025-246, 2025-243, 2025-198, 2025-197, 2021-295, 2025-245, 2025-238, 2024-111, and finally 2025-084.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the consent calendar that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, consent passes.
Thank you. Consent passes. Next up on the agenda, we're moving to unfinished business. First up is PCO 9-24. This is for second passage, committee report ordinance. For action, Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley and Councilman Howe, Councilman Lattiser. Any questions or comments on this that were not asked earlier this evening in the ordinance committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action for second passage. Yes.
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 Second passes. Thank you. Number 2 this evening is PCO 11-24. This is also for second passage. Committee report, Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Second passage. Number 3 this evening is PCO 12-24, also for second passage. Committee report, Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs.
Committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley, Councilman Howe, and Councilman Lattiser. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. Second passage. We're now moving on to new business. First up is PCR 8-24 resolution relative to the City Council meeting calendar for 2025. Committee report, intergovernmental.
Move favorable as amended, Mr. President.
Okay, can you move that for me, Councilman McElroy?
I move favorable action.
Okay, and second by Councilman Foley. Can you tell us what the amendment is? We'll take that up first and then do the...
The amendment was to move the date from, I believe it's September 8th to September 15th, 2025.
Okay. So we just need to move that amendment first, and then we'll take it up for debate. So are you making that motion? Do we have a second to that motion so we can have discussion? Second by Councilman Howe. Councilman Sinapi, I believe that was your request.
Yep, I can't attend on September 8th. My proposal to make the meetings back-to-back was to help alleviate the backlog that's created by the 2 meetings in the summer where we only have 1 a month. That way, rather than having one jam-packed September meeting and then a normal September meeting, we can kind of spread it out more evenly than normal to help keep the meetings smoother, especially after coming back into 2 meetings a month as opposed to 1. It's not my preference. Obviously, I prefer to have longer separation between the meetings, but it's the only solution available to me that comes to mind. Of course, the other option is to eliminate 1 meeting in September altogether and just have 1. I'd rather not do that because that just kind of kicks the can down the road when it comes to the backlog. But if that's the will of the council, then so be it.
Any questions or comments? Councilman Gephardt.
I would just say that we have had these back-to-back meetings in the past, and understand entirely my colleagues' issue with the 1 date, but the meeting and then meeting the following week, we tend to not be able to get a lot done because we've just heard things and then there's not enough time for things to accumulate. It'd be my preference to keep them spaced out at least by 2 weeks. I can look at the calendar and see if there's another option, but rather than have 2 meetings 1 week after another, if we can't get to a date that's amenable for everybody, I would be okay with a single meeting in September. But that's just my take.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I have no dog in this fight, so.
don't sound so happy.
Yeah. So before us at this time is it's been moved and seconded with the dates changing from the 8th to the 15th. So if there's no other motions or anything like that, I believe the next move is to vote that.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lattiser.
Yeah, I actually have a question for legal counsel. So given the fact that at least 4 of the members of this council won't be sitting here in January, perhaps as many as 6. With that said, would it be possible to revisit the calendar after the new members of the city council are sworn in?
The council is an ongoing body. It can amend its schedule on a regular basis. This is setting the regular calendar. The body can always modify its meeting schedule and the timeliness of that turnover. It could be revisited, but my understanding as to why we're here tonight is in order to get the purchasing schedules ready so that the lineup of procurements, particularly those that require more lengthy review periods, that they can be clear and set those dates far in the outset. So that I believe that's why we're taking this up during this gap potential period. But at the end of the day, the rules, set a baseline of how the council meets, but it's subject to however the council votes to meet. So this body, as well as whichever composition comes into effect in January, has the ability to change it. It would require some logistics with the Secretary of State's office, but the long story short is we set a baseline, and then there's always multiple ways to call specials should there need to be that or other changes for different reasons. So,
Okay.
so nothing's absolutely set in stone.
Yeah. So that's cool because I like logistics. And with that said, I think that with at least 4 new people being elected to this city council, it's almost 50% of the council. I don't ever recall a dynamics such as that. That is significant. It could be as many as 6. And with that said, I think that some decisions that perhaps might be made between now and the end of this calendar year, I think need to be weighed on very carefully. So with your explanation that the new sworn-in city council on January 2nd, and it's possible that Councilman Ricks and myself may not be here either. With that said, at least I know that there's an opportunity for the newly elected council people to weigh in on this calendar, whether it be to confirm it or to have one meeting or whatever. Thank you.
I guess I would just clarify that it was the theoretical. There's no, you would need majority of the council in order
I like
under
theoretical
proper
too.
notice. The theory
That's
is
good.
there, not, but I.
Thank you.
Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I do understand what the councilman is saying. However, we were elected and entrusted by the citizens of our wards that we actually live in to vote and represent them. And I am serving until January 7th. So I will vote on whatever comes before me and do my due diligence and my responsibility until then. So I'm prepared to vote on this tonight as it's been customary since I came on the council in 2017. Thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair to Councilman Howe, I was not suggesting or insinuating or asking for anyone not to vote on this evening. Perfectly fine with all of us voting on it. You're absolutely right. We have an obligation, on something such as this. But in the end, I wanted to be sure that the future folks who are sitting here would have an opportunity to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. For clarity, I apologize. I withdraw my comment. I misunderstood the councilman's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so hearing none, it has been moved and second with the amendment. So the amendment before us is favorable action for the calendar that is set with one change from the September 8th to the 15th. Just on the amendment, yeah. So that's what's before us at this time, just the amendment. Changing the September meeting, the September 8th meeting to September 15th. The clerk will call the roll on the amendment. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Thank you. The amendment passes. Do we have a motion, Councilman Sinapi?
I move favorable action
As amended?
as amended.
Second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Foley, Councilman Howe, Councilman McElroy, Councilwoman Travis. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action as amended. Yes.
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 Your Lattiser.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Unanimous consent. Ward 1, anything to docket this evening under unanimous consent? Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Yes, Mr. President, I have two, and I would, yeah, and I would request that we vote on them separately. First one is a resolution, and the resolution is, the tentative title is a resolution in regards to forming a city council-appointed ethics committee to provide oversight and review of day-to-day internal operations.
Councilman, we're going to recommend that you just docket it because we haven't set the agenda for the next meeting. So if you docket it, it'll appear that way. If under unanimous consent, it could be a little different. So.
Oh, at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, I misunderstood your email. I thought you told me to docket it for unanimous consent tonight.
Yeah, then it can be heard. If you docket anything tonight, it will be heard at the next meeting.
If drafted.
If drafted. So you don't need to do it under UC at this time.
Okay, so I don't need to do it under.
But you can
unanimous
docket it
consent.
in the docket session.
We get it drafted, it'll be at the next meeting.
Correct.
It takes care of both of them.
But we're
now.
coming back though, because we got to docket it though. So just not under unanimous consent.
Okay, I'll do it during the docket.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8. Ward 9. Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business from this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
All those in favor to move in docket session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in the docket session. I have one item to docket is the neighborhood ARPA funds. Again, that's last call. So please, we already have that docketed. So, okay. That's all I had. Ward 1, anything to docket this evening? Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I have two. I'll just read it into the record again. It's a resolution in regards to forming a city council-appointed ethics committee to provide oversight and review of day-to-day internal operations.
Intergovernmental.
And the next one is an ordinance, and the tentative title is an ordinance prohibiting the city council from voting on any expenditure exceeding $400,000 or any bargaining group contract that requires ratification prior to 60 days of an elected or newly elected city council taking office.
Finance.
Thank you.
If I may co-sponsor,
Absolutely.
please put me as a co-sponsor on both. Thank you.
Ward 6, anything to docket? Ward 8. Ward 9.
I have one. It's a resolution. A resolution recommending installation of a crosswalk at Major Potter Road at 424 Quaker Lane.
Public safety. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.